Today is Liberation Day. President Donald Trump has created a brand new day to celebrate American exceptionalism and to mark the day when reciprocal tariffs go into effect. And this is a day that has been a long time coming, something that President Donald Trump, he'd been planning for since he started running for president for his second administration. This is something that Donald Trump has been wanting to do for years, ever since his first administration. And now that he's into Trump 2.0, we are finally going to see reciprocal tariffs placed on every single country that places a tariff on the United States of America. And this is truly a day to celebrate, as Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, let us know yesterday in her White House press briefing.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, April 2nd, 2025, will go down as one of the most important days in modern American history. Our country has been one of the most open economies in the world, and we have the consumer base hands down, the best consumer base. But too many foreign countries have their markets closed to our exports. This is fundamentally unfair. The lack of reciprocity contributes to our large and persistent annual trade deficit that's gutted our industries and hollowed out key workforces. But those days of America, beginning tomorrow, being ripped off are over. American workers and businesses will be put first under President Trump, just as he promised on the campaign trail. The president's historic action tomorrow will improve American competitiveness in every area of industry, reduce our massive trade deficits, and ultimately protect our economic and national security. President Trump's economic vision is rooted in common sense. America will offer companies the lowest taxes, energy costs, regulations, if they make their products right here in the United States and hire American workers for the job. It's simple. If you make your product in America, you will pay no tariffs.
And that's a simple way to get people to, make products in America. And when people make products in America, everybody in America will reap the rewards. Everyone in America will benefit. What happens when you make products in America is you start to see that there are going to be economic advances. You're going to start to see how the rest of the world falls in line, and that all the cheap labor from around the world that's been stealing our jobs and stealing our economic excellence, that's been stealing our economic windfall, they'll start coming back to the United States of America. And we've actually already seen that in many aspects. There are plenty of places, the automobile industry, technology, AI, where industries and industrial leaders from all over the world have started to say, you know what? We don't want to pay tariffs. It's going to be way more expensive for us to pay tariffs. We're just going to move our factories and our workforces into the United States of America. And that is exactly what's happening. And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said this is the first time in decades that we're actually going to have free trade.
April 2nd, we are going to disclose the reciprocal tariffs. I'm not going to get out ahead of President Trump. He's going to announce them 3 o'clock on Wednesday. And I think for the first time in decades, probably since I was a college student, we're going to see a fair trade, and everyone will have the opportunity to lower their tariffs, lower their non-tariff barriers, stop the currency manipulation, stop subsidizing labor, stop subsidizing, stop providing cheap loans, and they make the global trading system fair for American workers again. And if President Trump campaigned on this, he has a mandate. As you know, he had a substantial electoral college majority. He won all 7 swing states, and he won the popular vote. So he has a mandate to do this. He's doing what he promised he would do.
Okay.
He's bringing jobs home.
Yeah, and that is something that a lot of people have already seen evidence of. In fact, if you look at Breitbart this morning, you'll see that Israel ended all tariffs on U.S. goods ahead of Liberation Day, meaning that tariffs work, meaning that Donald Trump's threat of Liberation Day is actually being taken seriously by all of our allies and a lot of our adversaries, and that people are preemptively ending their tariffs because they do not want what's coming. And that is, of course, Donald Trump's wrath hammer of reciprocal tariffs. Now, the interesting thing about reciprocal tariffs is that they are actually free and fair. Whenever somebody gets hit with a tariff that they weren't expecting, or they when they've been bullying us and taking advantage of us for decades, all of a sudden here comes President Donald Trump saying, okay, thank you, Canada, for putting a 300% tariff on all dairy products. You know what we're going to do? We're going to match that because, we want to be equal partners. That when they freak out and they start going, no way, you can't do that, what they're really saying is we don't want to be free and fair partners. We want to tariff you out the wazoo. We don't want you tariffing us at all. But reciprocity equals equality. And Donald Trump is just saying we're now going to be equal trading partners, or we're not going to be trading partners at all. And that's something that a lot of these countries are going to have to take a long, hard look at. There are some detractors, people that don't believe that tariffs are the right thing to do. And in fact, in the Senate right now, there's a bill to try to overturn Donald Trump's emergency at the Canadian border on fentanyl. And what that means is if the Senate can vote to overturn Donald Trump's fentanyl emergency at the Canadian border, then Donald Trump will no longer be able to impose his tariffs on Canada. Well, he's not happy about that. And there are 4 Republican senators. There's always Republicans. I don't understand. There's 4 Republican senators who are standing in his way: Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul. President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Rand Paul, also of Kentucky. He's not very happy with Kentucky this morning. Will hopefully get on the Republican bandwagon for a change and fight the Democrats' wild and flagrant push to not penalize Canada for the sale into our country of large amounts of fentanyl by tariffing the value of this horrible and deadly drug in order to make it more costly to distribute and buy. They are playing with the lives of the American people and right into the hands of the radical left Democrats and drug cartels. The Senate bill is just a ploy of the Dems to show and expose the weakness of certain Republicans, namely these 4, in that it is not going anywhere because the House will never approve it, and I, as your president, will never sign it. Why are they allowing fentanyl to pour into our country unchecked and without penalty? What is wrong with them? Other than suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, commonly known as TDS. Now, as far as Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski, there's definitely a diagnosis of TDS and Trump derangement syndrome. There's also a blind loyalty to Mitch McConnell, who is a sworn enemy of President Donald Trump and who is, well, on his last legs, literally. Rand Paul is just a libertarian and is therefore not a fan of placing these massive tariffs on Canada, even though there is a fentanyl crisis coming into the country. But I think Donald Trump is right. At the end of the day, hopefully the House won't pass it, although they're not even in session right now. And of course, Donald Trump would never sign it. But the fact of the matter is there's more attrition in the Republican Party, and Donald Trump is doing everything he can to try to root these people out. The headlines, of course, read Trump pressures 4 GOP senators ahead of anti-Canadian tariff vote, accusing them of TDS. This is something that is important. Tariffs are Donald Trump's most valuable tool. They're one of his favorite tools. And as we see with these tariffs already coming down, they're one of his most effective tools. In fact, these reciprocal tariffs and Donald Trump's declaration of Liberation Day for America has had the same effect as the very stringent immigration laws that we've seen and the crackdown on immigration by closing the border and getting Tom Homan and ICE and Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security to start just throwing these people out of the country en masse. All the most massive deportation effort in history, as he called it. What we saw illegal immigrants self-deporting. They were looking around going, I don't want ICE to throw me out and put me in jail. I'll just leave. And so they would turn around, they would pack up their stuff, and they'd go back from whence they came. Donald Trump is starting to see the same thing happen with tariffs. By threatening these tariffs today, you're starting to see countries remove their tariffs altogether because reciprocal tariffs are exactly that. If you have a 100% tariff on us, we will impose a 100% tariff on you. But if you lower your tariff to 0, we will also lower our tariff to 0. It's called tit for tat, or tit for tariff, or tariff for tat. I don't even know if there's a phrase for it, but we'll just call it tit for tariff for, well, you know what? We'll just call it reciprocal tariffs because that's exactly That's exactly what it is. There was some other news out of Wisconsin yesterday too, which was very interesting. In Wisconsin, there were two big votes. One was for the Supreme Court, and Brad Schimmel was going up against Susan Crawford. Brad Schimmel was the Republican candidate. Susan Crawford was the liberal candidate, and Republicans wanted the Republican candidate to win. Duh. They wanted the liberal candidate to lose. Also, duh. But that didn't happen. Susan Crawford was able to eke out a win, and the Wisconsin Supreme Court remains in the hand of the liberal progressives. That's bad because now they can redraw the districts for the House of Representatives, and that means that Wisconsin could have more blue districts going into the 2026 midterm elections than red districts. And if Wisconsin has more blue districts, then that means that the Democrats could take control of the House of Representatives unless the Republicans get off their tookuses and start really playing ball and putting forward some good candidates that can retain House seats and win new ones. What the other part of the ballot initiative yesterday was voter ID. And voter ID passed in Wisconsin, which was weird because Democrats are typically against voter ID, specifically Susan Crawford, who is an adamant opponent to voter ID, yet the Wisconsin Democrats put her on the bench. So in Wisconsin, voter ID was approved and Donald Trump celebrated. He wrote on Truth Social, voter ID just approved in Wisconsin election. Democrats fought hard against this, presumably so they can cheat. This is a big win for the Republicans, maybe the biggest win of the night. It should allow us to win Wisconsin like I just did in the presidential election for many years to come. However, the election of Susan Crawford, an anti-voter ID advocate, gets a lot of people scratching their heads. How is it that Wisconsin voters went to the polls and overwhelmingly voted for a Democrat who doesn't like voter ID, but also approved voter ID? Are they shenanigans? Or is it that even the Democrats, the left-wing lunatic socialists who put this woman back on the bench, or put this woman on the bench, even they don't want illegals and dead people voting in our elections. Even they think that elections should be free and fair. It's a very interesting thing that happened, something that's almost inexplicable. Donald Trump, of course, celebrating a couple of other election victories here in Florida. Jimmy Patronis won in Florida's 1st District, replacing Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz was, of course, the firebrand congressman from Florida's 1st for a very long time until he stepped down to run for attorney general. Then he stepped down from his attorney general post, and now he has a TV show on OANN. Jimmy Patronis will be the new representative from Florida's 1st District. Also in District 6, where Mike Walls, the national security advisor, had to leave his post, Randy Fine has won that election, and Randy Fine will be representing Florida's District 6 in Congress as well, which gives the Republicans a strong majority, not a strong majority, but they keep their majority in Congress. And with Elise Stefanik removing her name from the UN race or the UN position and going back to Congress, it's now solidified that there is a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, at least through 2026. And that, of course, is good news for President Donald Trump and his agenda, which he works diligently to push through. Now, there was a kerfuffle in the House of Representatives, which sidelined all work for the rest of the week. Anna Paulina Luna, the representative from Florida, introduced a proxy voting bill, which caused Mike Johnson to shut down the entire House of Representatives. So there will be no more action for the rest of the week. The House of Representatives got themselves some kind of extended vacation. I'm not really sure how that works, but that's a story that we'll be covering all day long today. And as Liberation Day unfolds, we will, I'm sure, be hearing from the president. We will, of course, be hearing from other lawmakers, and we will be bringing you all of the latest news in our second daily podcast called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. If you want to get more news, more information, if you want to get more insight, if you want to hear great interviews, and if you want to know what the heck is actually happening, not just in the White House, not just from Donald Trump's administration, but all over, then you're going to want to tune in at noon for Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. We're live on all of our streaming networks, and you can also download our podcast at your leisure so you can listen to it whenever. All you have to do is go to your favorite podcast platform, type in Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, download, listen, and enjoy.